Look guys, today I'm going to tell you about a company that was once worth $9 billion.
Yes, you heard that right, $9 billion.
But then what happened?
The entire company was built on lies and fraud. And the most interesting thing is that it was created by a 19-year-old girl who fooled all of Silicon Valley, investors, and the whole world. This is the story of Theranos, probably Silicon Valley's biggest scam. So the story begins in 2003. A 19-year-old girl named Elizabeth Holmes was studying chemical engineering at Stanford University. She was very intelligent, a brilliant student, but she had an idea in her mind that wouldn't let her sleep peacefully.
She talked to her professor, talked to her parents, and finally made a decision to drop out and start her own company. And just like that, in 2003, the company Theranos was born. Elizabeth's idea was simple, but seemed revolutionary. She said there's a big problem with blood testing.
Whenever you go to the hospital, nurses take a lot of blood from your arm with syringes. It's painful, it's expensive, and reports take time to come.
Elizabeth said, I'm going to build a machine where with just a tiny finger prick, meaning 1 drop of blood, you can do over 200 tests.
And that too at home, cheap, and with fast results.
Sounds pretty good, right?
Investors thought so too. But this is where the real story begins.
Elizabeth was very smart at giving presentations.
She made Steve Jobs her hero, started wearing black turtlenecks just like Steve Jobs.
Her natural voice was high-pitched, but she deliberately started keeping her voice low and deep so that she would sound more serious, mature, and authoritative. And the most powerful weapon, emotional storytelling. She would tell investors that her uncle died of cancer because blood tests weren't done on time.
People's hearts would melt hearing this personal story.
By May 2004, money started coming in. Millions came in initial funding.
After that, famous venture capitalists like Tim Draper invested.
The company was working quietly, wasn't much in the media, but money was coming in.
Elizabeth named the company Theranos, combining therapy and diagnosis. And she named her machine Edison after Thomas Edison. This girl was a marketing genius. By 2010, Theranos started making partnerships.
Walgreens, one of America's biggest pharmacy chains, made a deal with Theranos. The plan was that Walgreens stores would have Theranos testing centers where people could walk in and get their blood tests done. Safeway also became a partner. Investors became even more confident. But here's the twist, guys. What was actually happening?
Inside the company, many scientists and engineers were working who repeatedly told Elizabeth that this technology isn't ready yet. The machine isn't working, tests aren't coming out accurate.
But Elizabeth didn't listen to anyone. Her boyfriend, Sunny Balwani, who was president in the company, he was also very aggressive.
Whoever raised questions was thrown out.
A culture developed inside the company. Don't question, just work.
In 2013, things got interesting.
Theranos began opening its centers. Real customers were coming, and real tests were happening. But there was a major problem. Their main machine wasn't working at all.
So, what was Theranos doing?
They were secretly using traditional machines. They would take a small sample, mix it with a liquid, and then test it in the old machines. Now think, if you order a sample, how can the results be accurate? They won't be. People were receiving unreliable information.
This was a serious issue because important decisions were being made based on this flawed data. But in the outside world, Elizabeth Holmes was becoming a superstar. In 2013-14, media coverage exploded.
Magazines featured her as the youngest self-made female billionaire. The company's valuation soared to $9 billion.
At just 30, Elizabeth was personally worth $4.5 billion.
She received awards and gave talks around the world, becoming a global sensation.
The list of investors and board members was just as amazing, featuring some of America's most powerful people. But there was one man who sensed that something was wrong. John Carreyrou, an investigative journalist from the Wall Street Journal. In 2014, he got a tip that all was not well inside Theranos. He started investigating, secretly meeting former employees and collecting documents.
After months of hard work, in October 2015, his first story was published, questioning the company's technology.
And then, everything exploded. The story claimed that Theranos technology didn't work and the results weren't accurate.
Elizabeth immediately denied it on TV, calling it a campaign by competitors. But Carreyrou continued publishing more stories with new revelations. Then, government agencies stepped in.
In 2016, A report stated that a Theranos lab was putting patients' health in immediate jeopardy, and Elizabeth was banned from the industry for 2 years. One domino after another started falling.
Partners ended their deals, and investors filed lawsuits.
Forbes revised Elizabeth's net worth from $4.5 billion to zero.
Theranos closed its labs, and by September 2018, the $9 billion company was officially dissolved.
But the story wasn't over. In March 2018, Elizabeth and her partner, Sunny Balwani, faced civil charges for misleading investors.
Later, in June 2018, they faced criminal charges for deliberately deceiving investors and the public.
The trial began in September 2021. In her defense, Elizabeth made a shocking claim that Sunny had controlled and manipulated her. However, the jury didn't fully accept this. In January 2022, the verdict came.
Elizabeth Holmes was found responsible on 4 charges of deceiving investors.
In November 2022, she was sentenced to over 11 years in prison and ordered to pay back $452 million to those she had misled.
Elizabeth filed appeals and asked for bail, but nothing worked.
In May 2023, she went to a federal prison camp in Texas, where she is still serving her sentence. Sunny Balwani also had a separate trial and got 13 years.
He is also in prison.
The grandson of George Shultz, the senior statesman on the Theranos board, was the one who gave the tip to the journalist because he saw what was happening inside the company.
But his grandfather didn't believe him and supported Elizabeth.
He later realized the truth and always regretted not listening to his grandson. So, this was the story of Theranos. A 19-year-old girl started with an idea, impressed everyone, built a $9 billion company, and then it all turned out to be a lie.
There are no shortcuts in science.
No matter how much money or how many connections you have, the truth eventually comes out. The real tragedy is that patients suffered from incorrect information about their health. This wasn't just about money. It was about people's well-being.
And today, Elizabeth Holmes has gone from a billionaire to a prisoner. If you liked this story, please like and share it.